Nikki Haley got in trouble after the Alabama Supreme Court ruling on IVF because she came out with some quotes saying that it was the right decision, that embryos are children or whatever. It turns out that's kind of inconsistent with her own personal history, but we're gonna give her a chance to try to repair the damage.
The Supreme Court there said that embryos created through IVF are considered children and are offered those same protections. Do you agree?
I mean, embryos to me are babies. So
even those created through IVF.
I had artificial insemination. Yeah. That's how I had my son. So when you look at, one thing is to have, to save sperm or to save eggs. But when you talk about an embryo, you are talking about, to me, that's a life.
I didn't say that I agreed with the Alabama ruling. What the question that I was asked is, do I believe an embryo is a baby? I do think that if you look in the definition, an embryo is considered an unborn baby. And so, yes, I believe from my stance that that is. The difference is, and this is what I say about abortion as well, we need to treat these issues with the utmost respect.
The way that you show respect to this issue is by keeping the hell out of other people's business. And you would think that Nikki Haley, having literally gone through this process herself, would be a little bit more understanding of the fact that this ruling is not something for people like to debate as a philosophical thing. Right now, people's IVF procedures are on hold. There was an interview I saw of a woman who has spent 2 years and $50,000 trying desperately through IVF to have children, and now God only knows what'll happen. Maybe that's just $50,000 lost, because Nikki Haley, who doesn't agree with the ruling, but does agree that the ruling is right, that embryos are children. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. You went through this. Nobody has ever gone through IVF having had the IVF procedure assist in producing one embryo. There are always lost embryos, sometimes many lost embryos, and those apparently were people. According to Nikki Haley. According to Nikki Haley's own position, she was a party to murder, multiple instances of murder. And I feel crazy even saying this because this is such a stupid position to hold, but that is a position that she feels she needs to hold because she's a Republican, even though she herself has had IVF. Before we continue with the story, we depend on members to keep on going. Don't wait, click join now on YouTube. And I will remind you, before you weigh in, Brett, we said they were gonna come for IVF and they were gonna come from birth control. And all those right-wing pundits, the complete liars that they are, were like, no, we can do that, now let's do it. And they're doing it, and this is how they do it. And yes, it's fun for us to point to Tommy Tuberville and Nikki Haley and how they're being utterly inconsistent. They look like buffoons, but it already is effectively law in Alabama. And now other states are trying to do it too, Brett.
Yeah, it's like, what role does your ideology serve in your life? Because you said that they don't believe this stuff. They do. I think they do believe it, but they believe it in the way that they believe in their religion. Like, it makes them feel good. The problem is and the reason that we set America up the way we did originally, or like the founding fathers or whatever, is because I don't want that dynamic where your religion that makes you feel good can make my life a living hell simply by virtue of you wanting to feel a little better about this ethereal place that you have in a situation that does not affect you at all whatsoever. The desire to feel morally superior and be like, I want to be completely unified in my ideology, my religion being my entire country. Like that's we can't have that be how America functions, and that's how it is. And that goes for many issues in America. There's a lot of people who are like, well, I'm going to remove myself from the practicalities. Part of my own mental well-being hinges on me being able to sit there scrolling through Twitter and being like, I'm morally superior to all of these people. And then they go and try to get legislation that backs that up. No. That is not how we should be. That's why I like progressivism as an overarching idea for how to create a society. And that is just simply ground rules that protect people from crap like that.
It's utter mad. Like, how the hell have we, it's 2024. We have amazingly, a technology that is the work of, I can't even imagine how many people, so that theoretically, with a lot of trouble and a lot of work and a lot of money, you can have a kid when you otherwise couldn't. The thing that they say they want you to do is to have more kids. Thanks to science, thanks to technology. Yeah, but there's this dude in the Alabama Supreme Court that like read a book and not very closely, he's misinterpreting it, but the book was written a few thousand years ago, so screw all that. You don't get to do that. And maybe no condoms because God, this is what we face as a country, okay? We can go down the road of science and technology and compassion for people, or it makes me feel good to take away your rights. I really like that. I want to do that, actually. I want to do that. And by the way, we're gonna get to in 1 second, just briefly, a Republican who disagrees with this. We're gonna give them credit. But first, Trump isn't weighing in on this. Remember, he's an utter coward. He never tells it like it is. He tells it like he thinks he can after studying the crowd. Tim Scott asked about this, says, I haven't studied the issue, so I'm going to let Nikki Haley continue to go back and forth on that issue. That is literally him just saying, I'm terrified of saying the wrong thing, so I'll let her say the wrong thing. Utter cowardice. But Matt Gaetz has warned that this is not a good path to go down for the right. The Republican Party cannot be the party against family formation. Something is totally wrong. The people who want to have a family should have the government and the law on their side. And the notion that discarded embryos and an IVF somehow turn these people who want children and want families and want the American dream into criminals is really wrong. Now, he's wrong on other stuff having to do with this issue, but right there, he's right and reasonable when few other Republicans are being. So
right, and this exposes what's wrong with the way that they are having the argument. They are now in a position where they're like, at what point does it? These people who told you that life begins at conception are now telling you that, like, Matt Gaetz is in a position within the Republican Party where he says life doesn't begin at conception. What are we going to do? Move it back to viability? Because that's the only thing that really is the next step when it's viable to exist outside the body. Well, that's what Roe versus Wade was. That was the decision. It hinged on viability. It put together a bunch of rules as to when you couldn't have abortions based on viability and carved out some other areas. But basically that was it. That's what we had. And you guys ruined it. Yeah. And now it's going to be Matt Gaetz, who said that contingent of the party is going to be a contingent within the Republican Party who was all about, like, we need to ban abortion. Now they're in this scenario, which amplifies how insane their arguments are. Someone in that party is now on the outs because he basically revealed how stupid the entire argument was in the first place.
Just didn't they? I think in Handmaid's Tale, didn't they lock someone up because they'd used IVF? Like,
I don't know. And that brings me to who I think really is at fault. And I think I can really bridge the divides here. We need to think about who's at fault for an embryo not coming to term. And it's the embryo. I think we need to hold them responsible. And so for every IVF embryo that is not carried to term, it's not the mom's fault that the baby was such a wuss bag it couldn't survive. So I think that embryo is essentially committing suicide. So I think we need to prosecute the lost embryos. And you know what the price should be? Life. Give them the death penalty. That's how much I value life. We need to kill the dead embryos. Same with the 16-week abortion ban. Treat them like Elian Gonzalez. If it gets its feet on American soil, it's a person. These are refugees. Give them asylum if they're born.
I'm going to take the position of Tim Scott, and I'm just going to let Brett go back and forth on all that. Anyway, make me VP, please. Really fast, we don't have time to focus on this, but you just need to know, we live in a country where a guy like Alabama Chief Justice Tom Parker can decide that this is what the law is going to be after talking about the wrath of a holy God in speeches. And he's also close ally of Roy Moore. That's fun. Also, he recently appeared on a QAnon conspiracy show. So they're not special, they're not smart or clever people. They just went to law school and then said the right things, in some cases won an election and became judges. They are religious zealots, the same as religious zealots in any other country. The fact that they're Christian does not make them cooler or more impressive than religious zealots who take their religious dogma and believe that it should stand in for law. But that's what we have in America.